Hello, Clay from Chop Shop Motors. Welcome to another segment. We decided we were going to do something a little different, add another kind of playlist to the channel. This one is going to be a hot rod deep dive. We have a number of cars around here that you've seen in the background of the videos, and we have lots of friends and buddies that have projects or cars, and so we thought from time to time we'll do a deep dive and give you a little peek around what's inside, what's behind the project. Some will be done and driven and used, and some will be projects that haven't yet come to fruition yet. So we'll give you a little peek on both sides. So the first one for this segment is going to be the 37 Plymouth Coupe. This car's been in the family for an awful long time. Hot rod that came out of Miami, Globe, Superior area. Went up looking for old cars, came across this one in an alley, and decided that was perfect project to build into a hot rod coupe. So what it is, 37 Plymouth P4 Coupe, which means it was the deluxe version. When I got it, it was really just a body and a frame. The top of the roof had been barn danced in, and it was less than loved. The good thing about it, it had a title, it had current plates. They had actually plated it. It was a long way from being a car. So the fenders were destroyed. They towed it behind a truck and used the fenders to stop it. They would let it roll into the truck. So fenders were junk. I found a parts car, 37 Dodge. We pulled the fenders off of it, the headlights off of it, and a bunch of other trinkets. And between the two, ended up with more or less complete sheet metal for the project. So what makes this tick? It is a 351 Windsor under the hood, an automatic overdrive for a transmission, 8-inch Ford rear end, and a Mustang 2 front suspension. So disc brake, automatic, overdrive with air. It makes it for a really nice driver to go down the road. We've taken long trips in it and super comfortable. It's not too exotic. It's pretty basic. I mean, it is truly $20 a week kind of project, and it has served me well. So one of the upgrades we made in it 15 years or so ago is we put a set of 5-spoke calibrands on it, which was really cool. You'll see that we have some of those wheels on a couple different cars. Shelby's truck has a set of them on it as well. I just love the look of them. New calibrands are a little trickier to get. The company it's just harder to make sure they have the inventory and things like that. So old ones are actually easier to get if you can find them. So we'll look under the hood maybe last. What we might do now is show you some of the things, some of the little differences that make a hot rod and set 37 Plymouth, this particular one, apart from some of the restored brethren, and let you decide what you like and what you don't like. The first thing is the car's a lot lower than it would have ever been stock. So a stock 37 Plymouth had a solid front axle. They sat really high just because of the roads, and that was the norm back then. This one sits much lower, and that attitude that comes from an altitude adjustment makes it a little more aggressive, and I like it a lot that way. Front fenders have been altered just a little bit. Typically, the front fenders on a 37 Plymouth and 37 Dodge have a bulge for some reason, and then the running board has a bulge. I wasn't too hip on the bulge and then the bulge, so we flattened out the side of the running board and we built our own solid running boards. We flattened out the side of the fender, sorry about that, and we built our own running boards and blended it all together so it was a straight line. I like the look of it. At the time, it was kind of all of the craze to have smoothed off running boards with no rubber on them. This car's been together for probably 20 plus years, so there are some tells to that, but I don't want to change it now. I like it the way it is, and gotten super comfortable to not using the running boards that way. A couple other changes. The Plymouth had, and Dodge has had, all Chryslers for that matter, had 3 hinges on the door. You don't see them struggling with the same problems the Fords have where the doors sag over time. The 3 hinges really do make it super sound and solid, so that's kind of cool. It's got some aftermarket mirrors on, or they're factory mirrors, they're GM mirrors, but they never came on this car. If I were doing it again, I wouldn't use them, but again, go back 23, 24, 25 years, that was the thing I did, and I'm not changing it today. As we go on farther back, still has the tilt out windshield, still has the cowl vent, those things are original. As we get to the back of the car, the bustle is follows along an original car for the most part. This piece below the trunk lid is a little bit different because we fabricated that part. It was corroded away, rusted away. It has cutouts, pop-outs for the exhaust set up in there so that they don't hang down below. That's the third man part of our team, Mr. Winston. So here's the third man of our team. Come on, bud. Winston's on patrol. He's currently looking for rabbits, but he'll be out here for a minute or two and see there's none, and he'll get back in. So back to the car. It's got Dodge bumpers because I got a parts for the bumpers. It has MG trunk latch because I didn't want the license plate and all that stuff on the deck lid kind of cluttering it up. The license plate's down underneath, really not visible as you stand around it, but never really, I mean, I got pulled over for expired tags, so obviously the police could see it. 37 Dodge taillights. I like the look of them. They're a little bit longer. I have started to, or as I had this car, I acquired more of the Plymouth and Dodge taillights, so I kind of have a soft spot for those like I do Falcons. And so I had the option to do either set, but I like the long Dodges a little bit better. The Dodge was a step above the Plymouth, so it was just barely a step above in trim. So there were things on the Dodge that were a little more elegant than on the Plymouth, like the bumpers and the taillights. Inside the trunk, it's all finished. It's going to look kind of crappy probably, but it's got, one of the changes I did was I changed the arm that holds the trunk up for one simple reason. It was great in 1937, but when we would go to car shows, if there was a little one that would accidentally open the trunk, it'd take a finger off. It was just too heavy. So I put the hydraulic actuators off a deck lid on it, and that makes it a lot safer. People don't get an arm severed because of the deck lid. The trunk is pretty full right now. It's got a car cover and some other miscellaneous stuff, and you know, should be tidier, but that's all right. Just roll on. So let's take a look inside and show you what's different, what's not different from a 37 Plymouth built back in the day and one built from a hot rod perspective. So I used the factory 37 Plymouth door lock, so it still locks from the passenger side. You have to climb in, put the handle down, come out, lock it. I only have been locked out of the car a couple times by kids, and I'll show you how that happens. The way that happens is somebody climbs out of the car and puts the handle down and then closes the door, and for all intents and purposes you have to climb in through the trunk to get back in the car. Just a little FYI. Inside the car, the dash is pretty stock. It does have AC vents blended into the dash. I tried to do it as non-intrusively as possible. It has a vintage air system. It has the stock drawer pull gate switches that turn on the lights, dash lights, and I converted one to hazards. So all of that stuff is the way it came. The switches for the AC and the vent is where the original radio would have gone, so that occupies that space. This was again a P4, so it came or had the option of a radio. Inside, it's got bucket seats. I didn't have a bench seat and I wanted to make it so we could take. When Shelby was little, she actually came with us, so I put a back seat in it, and it's cramped, but it does accommodate a couple smalls. The column is created out of various columns, so it's got 57 to 62 Ford mass jacket and upper turn signal switch area. The bottom of it is 64 Chevrolet. So it's built out of different components to get what I wanted. Seats are a little Ford, like a Escort. That's probably the extent. It's got a B&M shifter. I'm not all that jazzed about floor shifts and things like that, but I had to put a shifter somewhere, and that's where it landed. So inside the glove box is where the stereo lives, and in the control for air adjust for the rear suspension for the air shocks on the back, if we're carrying a bunch of stuff to a car show or something. And that's kind of it. Okay, let's take a peek under the hood and show you what motivates it down the road. Hood and hinges and all that are original. The hood prop is not original, but probably somewhere along how it worked as a stalker. So right here we've got air conditioning lines on this side. It's got a 351 Windsor Ford small block motor. It's got a Holley carburetor, pretty basic stuff. It's got power brake booster off of mid 80s Mustang. It's got the radiator used is 62 Thunderbird. That was a side flow turned into a top flow. So pretty straightforward pieces, nothing too exotic. Motor nestles down in there pretty nicely. Ford motors are a little bit longer than Chevrolets, and with this engine bay having a 6-cylinder in it originally, there really wasn't any problem fitting this motor in there without any issues. As far as gauges and things like that, it uses the stock gauges. I had everything rebuilt to accommodate 12 volt. It has a capillary tube, so that doesn't really matter. It's a mechanical temp gauge and mechanical oil pressure gauge, so those didn't require any alteration other than to restore them so they would work. And other than that, it's pretty straightforward.
Please like, share, and subscribe.
That was Sean.